Warning, this episode contains adult language. Viewer discretion is advised. Hi there. My name is Charles Ray Dawson. I'm the Associate Broker and Residential Sales Manager at ProStar Realty. This is the Unnamed Real Estate Podcast, episode 180. And I had to check to make sure the little green light was on because, hey, background checks help. And I'm going to turn this up just a bit so I can see myself and give a little bit more glare on my glasses. Hope you guys are all having a really good day. It is Thursday. July the something or other. What is it today? Oh, the 18th. This month is moving by quickly. And I hope you guys are all having a really good day. So, I got a lot to talk to you about. Actually, the funny thing about today is we're going to be mostly talking about the federal stuff and sort of burrowing it down. Wow, what a weekend. So, nothing quite like coming back from your open house, and next thing your phone's blowing up with all these various texts, this, that, and the other thing, but you're driving, and I don't look at my text. I do not read my texts while I'm driving, people. I can't tell you how many people will text me knowing I'm driving to wherever they're at, and they're texting me, we're here, we're in back, we're whatever. It's like, I know, I'm coming there. No need to text, all right? But, so, I almost feel a little low energy today, and that's really weird, because I just slept in, I'm just slogging my way through the day. But in about an hour here, we're going to sit down and go through a whole bunch of paperwork with the broker and the office manager, trying to figure out exactly how we're going to redefine our business here. But let's get going. First, as always, you need to know what is your situation, all right? We're going to observe, and then we're going to orientate, and then we're going to decide, and then we're going to act, right? So let's look at our observations. Observations are real estate is being real estate-y. All right, let's hit these numbers and get them out of the way real quick. Okay, so these are the numbers for July 17th, 2024. Actives this week are 17,781. They were up 45 the week prior. Our new listings were 1,914, up 388, which actually sort of shocked me. And our contracts went up 2,039, up 288. We have closings of 1,548, and coming soon to an MLS near you is 522. So we had a slight drawdown of new listings, and all of a sudden we spike coming back up. Why is that? Well, we also had the interest rates start working their way down. All right, people are actively saying we're looking at a rate drop coming up in September with the inflation rate numbers and the job rate numbers. All right, that's going to decrease in the 10-year bond, which always translates over sooner or later into real estate rates went down. Jeff, the lender, sat there the other day and said he actually wrote a 6.812 loan with a 2,400 credit. Basically, long story short is not only did they get that 6.24 loan, but their actual closing costs were $2,400 less than they could have been. That's really interesting, right? So rates are coming down. We're starting to hear the sixes. Sixes are out there again. Will we ever see fives? I don't know. All right, we're going to have to see, after this weekend. I have no idea what the hell's going on, right? So there's a lot of people saying we came around butterfly's wing flap away from having some real serious real estate issues, and we're not. I'm talking real estate issues like we're not discussing how many bathrooms, how many bedrooms. It's like, what's my fields of fire? Do I have any dead zones? Right? Do I have any sloping roofs on the other side of trees that we can't see? That kind of conversation, right? But that's then. Let's do something a little bit less political than that. Let's talk about this. All right, this is directly from the White House website. All right, this is a fact sheet because President Biden is announcing major new actions to lower housing costs by limiting rent increases and building more homes. Now, if you're a libertarian sort, if you have taken any kind of economy class at any time in your career, except maybe for the last 4 or 5 years, all right, you'll understand that rent increases are not really anything professionals thinks is a good idea. All right, but let's talk about what is a rent restriction. All right, how do we limit rent increases? All right. We see this in New York City. We see this in Chicago, all right, where a government entity goes to the landlord and says, Mr. Landlord, you cannot raise the rent on your listings. or on your rental properties. This will make it better for your tenants, because now all of a sudden they're not suddenly going to get priced out of their neighborhoods, their markets. These might be neighborhoods that they raise their families in, and all of a sudden a bunch of hipsters come in and you're suddenly in the trendy neighborhood of town, right? The hipsters and trust fund babies show up and they start throwing money around, and next thing you know, your little flat, two-story walkout flat is all of a sudden 3 times what it was before. And hey, check this out. I got people texting me. All right. And that particular person I'm going to ignore for a while, like maybe for the next couple months. Anyways, so the idea is that we're going to limit how much that tenants, have to pay by limiting what the landlord can charge. And this is supposedly good for everybody, right? Unfortunately, what happens is these buildings wind up burning down. Right, they just suddenly burst into flames one night, because what happens is effectively is that the landlord who's taking on the risk of owning property, which means he's covering the repairs, or she is covering the repairs or covering everything else, all right, finds out that with the rate of inflation, and remember guys, we were talking 8-9% inflation rates here just a few short months ago. Right. When that inflation spikes in, it actually means that the rent he's getting paid is worth less than it was the month before. Right. So every year or so, you recalculate. Right. All right. So I'm really just going to have to. That gentleman right there, I call him James Joyce. All right. He does not just text you a question. He texts you stream of consciousness. All right. I mean, it's like reading a Dace's order. I hate it. Anyways, so when these when these changes happen, when these things are put in place, you eventually, because inflation goes up faster than whatever the government entity decides you can raise your rates at, you wind up losing money on your rental properties. What does this do for you? This means you wind up getting less rental properties. Say it again for the slow people in the back, all right? This means you get less rental properties because you're sitting there, you have a property. Maybe you married somebody and you moved in and you owned a condo and she owned a condo and you like her condo better. All right. And you're looking at it and go, well, I can put somebody in at the current market rate, and in 3 years, I'm going to be losing money on that transaction. All right. Or I can just sell it. Does it go to another landlord? No, it doesn't go to another landlord. All right. So what you effectively do is you take that potential rental property and move it out of rental property status and move it into homeowner status. Right, which negatively impacts the poor and people who cannot afford to rent. Right, everybody knows this except for these guys. Why? Because near as I can tell, Joe Biden is losing Nevada, because reading through this presidential fact sheet, and you can go to the whitehouse.gov and download yourself. Don't believe me. Believe the White House. He mentions Nevada 12 times. Right, this whole thing is about how great this is going to be for Nevada. Right? And so he's going to enable as many as 15,000 additional affordable housing units to be built in Nevada. Now, there's a couple things in here I actually like, all right? Rent increase, they want to lock it. You're capping rent increases on existing units at 5%, all right, if you own more than 50 units. Now, ooh, wow. Okay, that's that cognitive dissonance is kicking in, because right, that means that your big corporations like BlackRock, who might own 1,700 homes in Henderson, Nevada, all right, can't raise their rates up and stuff like so. Yay, we're screwing the rich. All right, but on the flip side, how many people out there are going to have 49 rental properties now? All right, this is how you game the systems. We saw the same thing when they were doing the I think it was healthcare costs, right? And it's like, oh, these don't come into effect until you have 50 employees, and your 50 employee, then all of these things have to happen. So guess what? These companies cap themselves out at 49, which means you didn't get the 50th job, and you didn't get the 51st job, and you didn't get the 52nd job. All right, you cap yourself out at 49. You start spending money on other things. Okay, all of a sudden it becomes a lot more business savvy to buy the $250,000 software package with a $50,000 a year support package on top of that, than to hire employee number 50, because employee number 50 means that you're going to be spending $1 million in costs later on, or maybe it's even just $65,000. Right? It does add up. So All right, so that's the known one. The other thing is releasing a whole bunch of federal property over for housing, which honestly, if the federal government's sitting there on a plot of property and isn't doing anything with it, I got no problem with them selling that, using it to pay down the federal debt, all right, and turning it over to somebody who might be able to make something else out of it. All right, so that's what's going on. They've got BLM's going to need to be kicking some land off. That's Bureau of Land Management for you people who are not my father. We also have, let's see, BLM is going to be kicking out, just reading some numbers off here, 18 acres to the city of Henderson. Hey, Henderson. They're going to be kicking, that's what happens when I print multiple pages up and don't staple them together. All right, so Henderson gets 18 acres. That's going to give them 300 affordable new housing units, read apartments. All right, here's one. BLM is considering additional 562 acres of public land that is identified by local governments in Southern Nevada that are appropriate for affordable housing in the Las Vegas Valley. Be interesting how close to town these BLM properties are. All right, and okay, so congratulations. All right, we got all of these units, and they're all out in the. I mean, this might be the equivalent of putting houses in, Globe. I'm assuming the BLM got. Actually, Henderson, Florence, that north area of Florence, right? That's BLM property. I actually go quail hunting out there, so that's BLM property, not Forest Service property. But we can put, high density apartment complexes out there, and it's only. Let's say it takes me an hour to get to my quail shooting spot from my house, all right? So if you're working downtown, it'd only take you an hour to drive in every morning and then an hour to drive back. But we'll probably throw a light rail out there for, how much is California's high-speed rail line costing right now per square mile? Like $3 million? All right, so $30 million to get, 30 miles to get out there. Okay, $3 million. That's a $90 million rail system right there. But hey, affordable housing. Let's see what else we got going on. Oh, Postal Service apparently has more than 8,500 facilities nationwide that could be reutilized. Oh, and HUD, Health and Human Services, and General Services Administration plan to release a final rule to make it easier for public and nonprofit developers to use federal buildings and land to house the homeless. Okay, let's talk about HUD. All right, because my other interesting article that I liked that came across, this is a courtesy of Real Clear Investigations. They are a subset of Real Clear Politics, which has literally been around for 24, 25 years now. They are, before Nate Silver got famous, they were like the place to go to for election news, especially aggregating all the polls and figuring out who was where. They also have a subset that nobody likes to talk about called Real Clear Investigations. And what they do is they tend to bring forward investigative reports that are usually done by local municipality papers, all right, dealing with local things, not something you're ever going to see on Fox, MSNBC, NBC, CNN, the alphabets or stuff like that, because they actually go into pretty details, and it's worth a read. All right, this is my Sunday morning read kind of stuff. But today, this article dropped, and you can go to Real Clear Investigations and look this one up. The Federal Housing Agency hasn't gotten its economic house in order under both parties. All right, and basically they just sit here bagging on my favorite, government bugaboo, HUD, Housing and Urban Development. All right, and it starts off with a story about a gentleman who basically defrauded the federal government for $1.8 million by convincing HUD, hey, I own these apartment buildings. And apparently he faked a bunch of leases saying that he was, renting all these properties out to low-income people, and then filing the paperwork, and he was getting HUD money to offset his supposed loss in rents because he was housing lower income people. God, you just gotta admire the audacity, right? But all right, so he's doing 70 months in jail. HUD had and then here's the lead. All right, HUD had nothing to do with bringing to justice the fraudster who'd made off with its cash. It was an indictment of the agency's decade-long resistance to fighting fraud, and a portent of any promise to tame the bureaucratic state, like the kind touted for a second Trump administration. So this whole article is just explaining how poorly HUD manages your money, boys and girls, and how there is almost an institutional belief. It's like an institutional mantra that these guys recite to each other. It's like there's no fraud in housing. We got good money going to help poor people who need it, and our good friends are taking care of it. Pay no attention to the campaign contributions that get kicked back to us, right? So, but Ray Oliver Davis, the HUD Inspector General, it says action is needed immediately, and she is like, literally, that's your job, woman. All right, let me make that bigger. That's your job, woman, right there. That's her. Okay, so, yeah. Anyways, great read. Love that one, too. Yeah, I just realized that I didn't even complete the rest of the numbers because I just went off on everything else. But hey, HUD supplies at HUD Cromford report supplies at 74.6. Our demand is at 75.8, and our Cromford report number for this week is 101.6, showing we're still in a balanced market. Breaking it down to your individual city-states, all right, we have Chandler still at the top, but still falling at 181.9. We only have 3 gainers this week: Avondale, Queen Creek, and Maricopa. And let's take a look at all of our buyers markets right now. These are Surprise, Goodyear, Cave Creek, Queen Creek, Maricopa, and Buckeye. You want a deal? That's where you're going to go. Where our balanced markets are currently Paradise Valley, don't care, and Peoria. Peoria is the only balanced market. And then we go still into what's technically a seller's market from Scottsdale, Gilbert, Tempe, Glendale, Mesa, Phoenix, Fountain Hills, Avondale, and Chandler. Okay, let's get that all out of the way. Told you I'm not really coordinated today. So that's our real clear investigation stuff. Definitely worth the read. All right. Now, talking to my industry. All right. Ed Zorn, who's a real estate agent and a real estate attorney, all right, is telling the real estate industry, get rid of commission sharing now. And this is the new, what we're trying to work out. Because remember, it's decided to be really important to maximize costs on the buyers and offset the seller's costs by making sure that the buyers had to pay for their own real estate agents. This is considered fair and equitable to the haves and screw the have-nots. So once again, what we're doing is we're taking to the point where first-time home buyers are going to have to come up out of pocket, all right, to pay for a real estate agent to help them out in buying a house, or they can just do it on their own, or they can trust the guy who's selling the house. All right, so they can drive onto that car lot and, some used car salesman in front of that house for sale, or those builders for sale. By the way, big blow up on one of our builders in town right now. Not going to go into details on it because okay, there is a builder here in town, and I just remembered this, and somebody sent this to me last week, and I really should have mentioned it. There is a builder in town who's literally suing a YouTube channel for talking shit about how shitty the job they build their houses on. The guy is a home inspector. He goes out there and he's talking about the importance of doing home inspections even on new builds, and he starts pointing out everything wrong with this particular builder. And so what do? They fucking sue him. All right. Yes, I'm swearing. All right. This is what they want, guys. Okay. Wow. I just started channeling Rachel Maddow there all of a sudden. Right down to the glasses. This is what they want. They want to kill us all. They want us to live in shacks. All right. So yeah. So they sit there and file a cease and desist and say, you can't talk to us about us like this. We want you to shut up. And of course, what does he do? He takes it to the nets. Love it. Okay, so obviously this is what we need to get to in life, all right? Bad actors need to be called out more, all right? So building companies that are building shoddy houses and then trying to shut down the discourse from the people who are actually looking at these houses and saying, I am an expert in housing, this house sucks, okay? And all of a sudden, you're getting cease and desist. This is where we're going to, all right? Along these lines, what's going to happen? So now the person who might actually suggest you might want to get a home inspection, now you can't afford one because the builders don't have to pay extra. All right, this is exactly what they wanted all along. This is exactly what I've been talking about for like the last year. All right, so when you sit there and you realize that the Department of Justice, all right, had an agreement with the National Association of Realtors, all right, and then all of a sudden they reneged it, Okay, and say, no, we never had an agreement, and we're not going to hold up to that agreement. And by the way, we're doubling down on investigating you, right? At the particular time, literally the day after a certain person gets sworn in as president. Okay, and I really want somebody who has the time and the effort to look at the major building companies here in America, all right, and see where their management's sending money to this election season. All right, I think you will. I wouldn't be surprised. I'd be surprised if it wasn't. But let's take a look into that. But meanwhile, it's up for us, the grunts in the trenches, all right, to have to pick up the pieces and deal with this new normal. All right. So I think I covered some of these things last week. All right. These are the docs I'm going to go through. Buyer broker exclusive employment agreement. We all know what that is by now, boys and girls. All right. But we got some other ones on top of it. All right. This is, we have the exclusive agreement that says, I'm in a relationship with you. All right. I'm your agent. All right. This is what we've always done. Well, Arizona Association of Realtors decided to come up with what I'm calling the Tinder form or grinder form, depending on which way you swing. This is the buyer broker agreement to show property. Okay, this is not a commitment. This just means that if I write the offer with you, then I'm going to get paid. This means you buy a house. This is putting a ring on it. Okay, this is the long-term commitment. All right, this is OnlyFans. This is just a one-shot deal. Okay, all right. So the other one has no. It's just for a short period of time, and just if you buy the house that I show you. Okay, basically if you swipe right, okay, then that one. The other one is, we're going to have a relationship. Okay, so we're being told this is what the consumers want. They don't want a long-term relationship with a real estate agent. They just want to hit it and quit it, get on, get out. How does that go? I want to get on, get in, get off, and get out. Get it? Audience says, got it. Good. All right, so what else do we have going on here? Buyer-tenant employment agreement addendum. All right. What this one says right here is that so it can get modified at the drop of a hat. Okay. We have a seller compensation addendum. This one's going to be a lot of fun because it's actually, even if the seller says, I am not offering anything to the buyer's agent, the buyer can now send an offer over to the seller saying, oh, by the way, I want to buy your house. I'm going to pay you this much, and I want you to pay my agent on the side. So now we're negotiating on that. Seller compensation addendum in case we ever do need to modify any previous agreements. Unrepresented buyer disclosure. Okay, you're going to see a lot of these, boys and girls, especially veterans and first-time home buyers, people using FHA. We might even be talking to those people called minorities, okay, because one of the problems with throwing paperwork over my shoulder is I can't go back and reference it. One of the organizations out there that is like seriously trying to fight this whole commission thing is the National Association of Hispanic Realtors. Mostly because they realize that their Hispanics make up a large majority of first-time home buyers. I wouldn't say majority because that means more than 50%, or about a large tranche of first-time home buyers are Hispanics. All right, sometimes this might be the first home that their entire family has ever owned, and they realize that they're basically getting screwed on this one, and they're trying to fight it. Okay, I would be really interested to see how the Department of Justice, who through HUD, okay, a couple years ago literally said you can't make a requirement when you're renting a place a felony because it's like disproportionate impact, all right, on minority types. You can't ask that question anymore before you put people into an apartment complex. And there's a long conversation to be had there, whether or not they're going to look at this new, organization and go, wait, this is disproportionately impacting, low income and first time home buyers and minorities. Right? So, hey, but this one right here, okay, unrepresented buyer disclosure. You come to me while I'm sitting at open house this weekend and you say, I don't have a real estate agent. And I'm going to say, do you want a real estate agent? And they say, I can't afford one. What's your seller offering? All right. In my particular case, I'm going to say my seller's offering 2. Why don't you go find an agent out there who's willing to work for 2, come in here and you can write an offer on this place using one of these other forms over here and you'll be good to go. If my seller was not offering anything, 0 zip, and you come in, we're still going to try to have a transaction. I'm just not going to be your agent. I'm somebody else's agent. All right, because I'm the seller's agent, I'm not going to do dual agency and be both sides agents. All right, because I don't swing that way. So, and oh yeah, that causes a lot of hate and discontent in real estate circles. Let me tell you what, watching these boomers start talking about how great and wonderful they are because they love doing dual agency and they can give clients on both sides of the transaction their full 100% service. And I say, well, how do you get around negotiation? How do you get around having the buyer know what they need to call out on the Benzer or not? All right, and I find some of these guys are walking lawsuits. All right, so hey, that's them. And if I'm ever running this show, they'll have to have a come to Ray meeting. All right, and it's like, no, not a come to Jesus meeting. This is a come to Ray meeting because I have more earthly authority right now when you were in my office. Okay, so they're going to have a come to Ray meeting and realize they're not going to be able to do that anymore. But with these new systems, these new things in place, all right, they're going to have to come in and just basically be unrepresented. All right, so this is the new normal. This is what people wanted. This is what happens when you get 6 people who have never owned a house and couldn't come up with an excuse to get out of jury duty, and some people working for the federal government who have ulterior motives, probably for personal profit. Yeah, I said that. Decided to muck around with an industry that they know nothing about. So, I'm a little ranty today because I'm really getting at that give no fucks portion of my life, right? And I'm sort of embracing the chaos, and I'm enjoying it, all right? So, no segue. You guys all know what to do. Say it with me, boys and girls. Watch your children, pets around water. Okay, don't drive into anything flooded. Don't sweat the petty stuff, and don't pet the sweaty stuff, all right? You guys have a great day. Work your circles. I'll talk to you later.